express my deep gratitude for the honor and privilege to address this iconic and top-ranked university, which is not only one of China's most historic and prestigious universities, but also a global citadel of intellectual vibrancy, academic excellence, and groundbreaking research. From its founding in 1898 as a symbol of reform to its pivotal role in shaping China's intellectual and academic identity, Peking University has consistently stood at the vanguard of rigorous scholarship and public service. I commend your leadership, faculty, and the entire community for cultivating a world-class institution that fosters mutual understanding, talent development, and knowledge sharing between China and the world. Peking University has played a pivotal role in China-Africa educational relations, having educated over 4,000 African students since 1956, including many from Kenya. We are proud of our academic collaboration, including the partnership with Kenyatta University in literature and cultural studies. These exchanges and the scholarships you provide are building lifelong people-to-people bonds and transforming lives in very tangible ways. Indeed, education is a pillar of our diplomatic partnership. As Kenya, and as we deepen our focus on science, technology, and innovation, we welcome further partnerships with Chinese institutions, particularly in STEM fields, that is, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and the creative economy. Kenya's Silicon Savannah is established at Concert Technopolis, and our upcoming National Artificial Intelligence Strategy offers a unique platform for cutting-edge collaboration between Kenya and China. Ladies and gentlemen, we gather at a time of profound and accelerated global change. From regional conflicts, economic shocks, and climate disruption to cyber insecurity and demographic shifts, the challenges we face today are complex, interconnected, and urgent. But within these challenges are opportunities. Opportunities for renewed partnership, bold thinking, and imagined global architecture. Africa and China have emerged as pivotal partners in this shifting landscape, bound by history, powered by mutual interest, and grounded in a shared future. 2 days after Kenya gained independence, in December 1963, China opened its embassy in Nairobi, becoming the 4th country to do so. Our ties have only deepened since, culminating in the establishment of a comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership in 2017. China is now sub-Saharan Africa's largest trading partner and Kenya's largest overall. We export tea, coffee, flowers, and more. And I trust many of you may have enjoyed a cup of Kenyan tea or coffee, or a bouquet of fresh flowers or roses from Kenya. Over 3,000 Chinese companies operate in Africa, 500 of them in Kenya, most from the private sector. Our cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative has delivered flagship infrastructure projects including roads, ports, and the standard gauge railway infrastructure that is reshaping national connectivity and regional integration. But even as we celebrate these achievements, we must confront a sobering truth. The post-war multilateral system is broken, dysfunctional, and no longer fit for purpose. And the escalating trade tariff war may be its final death blow. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to give my perspectives on four key aspects. Namely peace and security, the climate change crisis, the global financial architecture, and matters global trade, and suggest possible ideas on the way forward. On the United Nations and the UN Security Council, no other circumstance other than the post-war situation would have made the current structure of the UN, and more particularly the UN Security Council, and that is the 5 permanent members with individual powers, an acceptable peace and security architecture. The Security Council, once a beacon of peace and diplomacy, now has one permanent member invading one country, while another member takes sides in conflict, in direct contradiction to the Council's own resolutions. Yet today, the permanent members live in denial and resist reform, even as the Security Council becomes less and less legitimate and its relevance is being put to question. On the other hand, the global multilateral financial architecture is simply outdated. The Bretton Woods institutions recently celebrated their 80th anniversary. 80 years ago, we all know 2/3 of the world's nations did not exist as states when this architecture came into being. The IMF was established to buttress the gold standard fixed exchange rate system, a system that collapsed 50 years ago. The World Bank, on the other hand, was established to rebuild Europe, an assignment now very well overtaken by events. This financial architecture that we have today presents 4 intertwined challenges. Number 1, the challenge of liquidity or financial safety net for the multiple and persistent climate and economic shocks that we face today. Secondly, inadequate finance for development and climate action. And number 3, cost of capital, what we are calling the great financial divide. And lastly, the problem of recurring debt crisis in developing countries, which is a consequence of the first 3. The climate crisis is perhaps the most urgent and existential challenge of our time. Africa, despite contributing the least to global emissions, bear the greatest burden through floods, droughts, displacement, and food insecurity. We have scientific consensus that these extreme weather events are human-induced. But even if it were otherwise, decarbonization of the economy is progress in its own right. Conservation of nature and clean air are desirable ends in and of themselves. But 30 COP conferences later, national interests continue to stand in the way of global collective action, notwithstanding the fact that the atmosphere has no national boundaries. We continue, in my opinion, to play dice with nature. When the World Trade Organization was mooted in 1945, world trade consisted primarily countries exported manufactured goods, while the less developed countries exported primary products and raw materials. But today, the world of trade has changed dramatically. Trade in services now accounts for a quarter of global trade and are growing 3 times faster than the merchandise trade. The business process outsourcing, BPO commonly known as, and IT-enabled services, which were inconceivable in 1945, are currently in the order of $300 billion and projected to grow at 10% annually over the next decade. Trading services, particularly digitally enabled services, defies the traditional goods logic, as it enables professionals in developing countries to compete with their counterparts in industrialized countries with a lot of ease. But this leveling of the playing field goes beyond digital services. For example, affordable air travel enabled medical tourism to emerge as a growth industry. Ladies and gentlemen, having contextualized the situation as it is now, allow me at this point to suggest my views on where I consider the opportunities of the future to be. Let me put some context to this. For the first 45 years of its existence, the post-war multilateral system was shaped by bipolar ideological divide of the Cold War. This divide, the East-West divide, suggests that we are unable to overcome the bipolar of that era, or the bipartisanship or bipolarism of that era. Seemingly, there appears to be Cold War warriors that are unable to see a world that is not ideologically polarized and are determined to reinvent a polarized world by every means possible. In a world where globalization is no longer an option, but an existential imperative, any polarization is undesirable, unnecessary, and untenable. 2 structural forces, in my opinion, have driven globalization, namely technology and demography.